Hi, everybody. I'm Frank Stanisci of Candid Frank Live, and this is CFL football talk, basically, the Spanglish Network on Zingo TV, channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download the app, make sure you rate, leave a comment. Both apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV is available from Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and also on all smart TVs 2016. Forward joining me as usual on the football show is David Morassutti. David just got back from a cruise, so you could say he's really cruising. More important than anything was, first of all, how was your Christmas?
Christmas is good. Um, yeah, I was in vacation mode pretty much at that. As soon as we got to when did we do our last show? Yeah,
It was the Monday before Chris.
I think our
No,
last show was
it
like
was
the 15th.
the Monday, 2 Mondays before Christmas.
Yeah, so it was just getting into the holiday mode. As you can tell, I had a good time on my trip because I don't hardly have much of a voice.
Yeah, and your mom had bronchitis, and you're having a slight touch of throat issues, I can hear.
Hmm.
So we'll still lean on you the same amount we always lean on you. So, no mercy here. I apologize. Then, of course, New Year's. Well, for me, Christmas was fun. One of those things where it was my first time without my mother, and it was depressing because of that. It was, my mother was 96 years old, so I kind of got used to her being around. So anyway, so then New Year's, and the Legion I'm in, that I'm BP1 for, we had a New Year's party. We organized it. It worked out pretty good. A lot of the people from the town showed up, so that was a lot of fun. And you were on the boat on New Year's, right?
Yeah, that day we left St. Thomas and we were on our way to Tortola. So we were in between islands at that point. Got the party on the cruise deck, on the cruise pool deck. So that was a lot of fun. It's always
I don't doubt it was a lot of fun, and I know. The other piece of news is my computer crashed, and I had to put the Windows 11 on it, and ugh, I just don't know what I'm doing, so it's impossible to make it work right. But it's frustrating, an old guy like me doing this silly stuff. But anyway, so yeah, so that catches us up to what we're doing since we did the last show. Um, there hasn't really been much in the Canadian Football League news, I believe, since then. There hasn't really been that much. In fact, today a big story broke with the Argos trading Dejan Allen to the British Columbia Lions.
yeah, it was kind of an out of nowhere move.
Like
You know,
last year when they traded
yeah, when
Curly
they traded
Gibbs.
Giddens. This one more so just because Giddens he was dealing with injury, and it was a lot of money to pay for a guy who hadn't played, and so I understood that one and it filled the need for them. This one was like I think they realized again money crunch is coming. They wanted to improve their Canadian depth,
Which they did, yeah.
which they did, and it's tough. You're trading away a player that last year, well, let's say the season before 2023, was a top offensive lineman in the league, voted.
Hmm.
Right, that's not an easy move, and that's been a strength of this Argos team has been their offensive line. So it's a risky move, but I think one that the Argos felt that they had enough depth to say, okay, let's take a chance, and probably clear up some cap space in the process too.
Um, Clear up cap space in the sense of paying him more money, or how much they were paying him, and his replacement that they have in mind earns a lot less, and there's an
I
upside
think
to the
they
replacement.
mentioned a couple players on rookie
Yeah,
deals.
yeah. So basically, this was an opportunity to solve a problem before it became a bigger problem. So we see um, here what I see here personally, without being in the room, as part of the decision making process. I see this as an opportunity to trade somebody that you probably weren't going to sign because you weren't going to come up with the kind of money you needed to come up with to keep them and get yourself an asset. And, as important and as good as a player as Dejan Allen was, which he was, you're getting a Canadian player playing a position that, you know, a Canadian player, and we're getting a lot of them more and more that are in the linebacker position, right? So this is kind of a trend that is happening, and the Argos are just falling in that pattern. Um, uh, this kid is not has only been in the league for a couple of years, so the Argos, I assume, saw something in him that had value that they could trade for. So we'll find out. We'll find out. He plays special teams as well, which a lot of young players need to do, and he's pretty good at it. So he'll be an asset in that regard right away. I'm wondering. What I am wondering is this is just a big move that I think reaches into the psyche of the team as well. Um, it basically makes the statement that it seems, for a few years at least, not always, coaches, general managers talked about, we really don't want to lose guys, but we're gonna because of the success we've had. And this is that without saying it, but it affects the room the same way.
It does. And look, it's a bit of a shakeup there, but it's also a reminder, hey, we want to get back to being continue to be a championship. Can't keep everybody.
Nope.
There are going to be a lot of players. We've already started to see, I don't know if you saw, we're already starting to see the exodus of the coaching staff. 2 assistants already gone,
Right.
right? So it's kind of an inevitable thing in the CFL where these teams built don't last forever.
Yeah.
You
And
got to
go
find
ahead.
ways to adapt.
No, go ahead. I was just gonna. Sorry about the interruption. But what I was going to say while I was interrupting was that one thing that football teams have to do in this era is financial considerations have to be massaged. You know, you can't solve a financial problem with a broad stroke, right? It almost has to be multiple moves that help you manage the cap. In this instance, this is what they're doing, I think. But the bigger picture, David, is what makes an organization today in the Canadian Football League successful is how they do manage the cap and how they handle accepting change and embracing it. And teams like the Argos and the Montreal Alouettes, the teams that are successful, one of the things you do see is that they're able to change players and not change you know, the function of the team itself for the most part, right? The Winnipeg Blue Bombers are the best example of the last 10 years, right? Where they've made change after change after change, and they still maintain a way of winning, right? And this is one of those cases. This is just a tiny little bit of a sample and a visual to see how big changes have to be made. And now the question is, will this big change affect the team in the long term? The good teams figure out a way for it not to affect them, and that's the challenge the Argos had to take on, and every other CFL team, moving forward.
Yeah, I do think that teams that hang on to, like, you want to keep a core together. I totally get that. And the Winnipeg's done a really good job of that. They've identified their core players. It's how you build around those core players, right? It's really all it comes down to is identifying that core.
Absolutely.
but it's one thing to identify the core. It's another to keep it within a team friendly budget. And teams
Yeah,
have struggled with that.
and it's very important. The chemistry, that creates a team, or that is the result of the makeup of the team, right? That chemistry is, I won't say dangerous to work with, but any component that you alter or that disappears can affect the overall picture in the team. And the one thing that Argo fans don't appreciate, and teams like fans like Argo fans, I hope they appreciate the challenge their team has in staying on top. This is where I talk about, Winnipeg and other teams that have had successful runs. You really need to appreciate what these teams do. I'm sorry if I'm sounding redundant and saying it in a different way, but I think that's the biggest challenge if you want to be a challenger for the cup every year. You have to really, really, again, massage the lineup financially, physically, and more importantly, we talked last time about a defender that the Argos have that they can't afford to lose, right? Wynton McManus is a guy they can't afford to lose. So I mentioned his name and mentioned talking about the Argos because that's a team we know the best. That you don't want to lose that guy. So I believe the Argos feel that way, and that means you're going to have to lose somebody else. And this is the massaging of the lineup, right? It's not what you want to do. The Argos didn't wake up this morning and go, we're going to trade Deshaun Allen. That's not what happened. Basically, they started doing some number crunching, and they're looking at what their team's going to look like and how can it look like a champ. And this is a decision they made. And other teams are making the same kinds of decisions.
Yeah, I mean, it's just you don't want it to get too close to free agency when you're trying to bring these guys back, because the closer you bring them to free agency, just like I might as well see what's out there,
Yes,
right? So if you're the Argos, when it comes to Win McManus, the goal should be don't let this guy get to free agency.
absolutely.
But at the same time, the decision sometimes gets made for teams,
Absolutely.
right? I mean, there was a time where we thought Willie Jefferson wasn't going to be back in Winnipeg.
Oh,
He did
absolutely.
meetings with Toronto, with
Stanley
Hamilton, a few
Bryant.
other teams. I thought he was gone.
Yeah.
He decided to come back. So teams, I feel like, also have to be confident in what they have and saying they like Toronto should be like, Wynn knows what he's got here. He knows how important he is. And they have to hope that along with whatever they're offering him is going to be enough.
Yeah, and the bottom line is it is a relationship, and in that relationship, it has to be good for both parties. And we can sit here and talk about how lucky the Argos are to have Winton. We can also say how lucky Winton is to have the Argos. And the question between the two of them, what's it going to take to get that signature to create that relationship, because it's a two-way street. It isn't a one-way street. By virtue of the way football as a sport exists, there are a lot of players that you can pick from. The depth in football is so deep. There are a lot of things you can do as far as bringing players in that you think came out of nowhere, but they're part of the monster package of players that are available every year. Unlike other sports, that you can see a star player in his first year develop. Like look at a Polk, for example, with the Toronto Argonauts. That kind of level of success for a player is not unusual in the Canadian Football League. I honestly believe that.
No, and the other thing too is right now teams in the NFL can start handing out future
Yep,
contracts.
that just happened. Yep, they're now able to work out who they want to go into the 2025 season.
So that's gonna throw a wrench. Like for the Argos, you're right. Mackay Polk could be gone,
Absolutely.
right? And so there's just so many variables for teams right now that they probably, some of them are probably like, if we get a chance, we really like a player, and a team, a team feels like they're not going to be able to keep that player. Go and make a trade for him. Get his rights. Get it done early. Know what you have before you go into free agency, because otherwise, you could be in a position where, oh man, we're not going to be able to keep this player. We haven't really thought about where we're gonna allocate the money to. And look, Toronto. Like I'll bring Toronto as an example because Kadeem Carey. We said he could be back. He might not be. They decided to get proactive and got a running back already done up and signed. Right?
Another guy, yep, another guy they think, that's a candidate to be, you know, the main ball carrier.
Yeah. So you have to be, again. It's just one of those things where you have to prepare for the inevitable. Right?
Yeah, and the change. I mean, I can't say it enough. The most important quality an organization has to have in today's I'll just stick with the Canadian Football League. The biggest and best quality you can have is how easily you pivot. Like pivoting in the Canadian Football League, as far as the roster is concerned, and with the impacts from, of course, the money that you have to pay, that is the best quality that a team needs to develop. Because, quite frankly, again, I mentioned Polk only as an example that in his first year he had that much of an impact.
Mhm.
Well, you got to find the next Polk, whether they keep Polk or not. And when I say the next Polk, I don't necessarily mean a receiver either. I mean a player, an impactful player. And I said earlier, there are a lot of football players out there that your sore throat and my hiccups. This is quite the tandem we've got going on here. Uh, so no, you know what? It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun covering the Canadian Football League again. One thing as a fan or a reporter, don't get too settled into the lineup because it's gonna change.
Yeah, yeah, I get it, and so yeah, it's just gonna be one of those things where it leads to a lot of excitement. I will say though, intrigue.
Absolutely.
Like I know people don't like all the movement in the CFL, but it keeps things fresh.
No, it definitely keeps your eye on the prize. Although I don't want to drill down too deep into the tough nature of. I don't want to remind people, there are a lot of people that buy jerseys and that player disappears, and I know how unhappy some fans are. So this is the time of year. I just did it. Uh, this is the time of year when you could find a couple of fans that are unhappy because if the fans that had the Dejon Allen jersey, aren't thrilled. And that's one of the things about being a diehard, a person who wants to support their team to the point where they support a player in particular. This is a tough time of year for them, wondering whether that guy's going to come back or not. Right. So that's what makes it interesting. I want last word on the Canadian Football League, and then we'll talk about football today. And the most interesting football that's being played right now happens to be played in the monster league known as the National Football League.
Yeah, I mean the CFL really hasn't been much going on to really talk about, so I'm sure there'll be more once. Seems like this week
I think we
everything's
should
happening.
pivot, is what I'm saying. I think
Mhm.
we should pivot. So we're going
Yeah,
to pivot to the National Football League, the NFL. The next 30 plus minutes. The seeds have been planted, if you will. Um, you know, it's the playoff bracket is there for you to see. It's actually, I have it behind me. Um, and I guess to wind up the season, I'm going to talk about the two teams that we kind of gravitate to. Yours, we'll talk about yours first, and that, of course, is the Dallas Cowboys. Um, a disappointing season, Um, Disappointing in the sense, especially because they didn't make the playoffs. And um, I'll start by saying this, that they have not had the kind of quarterbacking they're paying for. Um, is the reason that it looks like that, David, because of him, or is it the players around him?
I'll say a bit of both. I feel like when it comes to Dak Prescott, they gave him all this money, but didn't address the areas that would make it successful, which is having a good running game, having a good offensive line. Dallas has struggled with that. It didn't take them until halfway through the season to realize they actually had a good running back, but they were so preoccupied with bringing Ezekiel Elliott back that Rico Dowell was kind of set aside. So I think when it comes to the Cowboys, the other thing you have to consider is how many coaches have been around too, right? Um, there's talk about whether McCarthy comes back. Um, what other changes could be possible? That will throw a lot of wrenches into things. But I
One of the
think,
changes I think they need is change at general manager.
yeah, unfortunately, you can't fire the guy that pays the
Oh,
bills.
wait, he owns the team.
Yeah, you can't fire the guy that
Wait.
pays the bills. That doesn't work.
Oh, that's just, that is, to me, David, is the elephant in the room. Honestly, that's the elephant in the room. Um, and I can take what I said about the Canadian Football League pivoting and massaging the cap, massaging the team. Um, they proved to me this year, because they used to be my team back in the 80s, 70s. Um, they proved to me this year that they don't know how to pivot, and they don't know how to um, deal with situations that come up as they're happening, rather than allowing them to fester. And you pointed out the best example in that, and that is at running back.
Yeah, I mean, you look at where what the good teams have had, right? It's balance. I think it's more so balance than anything else. I look at the one team that right now is also trying to break a bit of a slump, and that's the Detroit Lions, right?
Mm.
And that's a team that's been through its fair share of uh, struggles, heartbreaks. But now, as they found that balance, they found that pride in their game. They pay a lot of money on their quarterback, right? But they seem to find a way to make it work. I think that's something
They had lots
Dallas.
of injuries too, David, that they had to
Oh yeah.
overcome in the defense.
So, if I'm Dallas right now, if I'm seeing a team like Detroit, that should be a wake up call, right? It's a
Yeah,
team that's decimated by injuries. Yes, they got their important players intact still, but they found a way to push through. And so I think that's going to be a bit of a wake up call for Dallas.
absolutely. Um, the team that I like the most in the NFL is the Kansas City Chiefs. If I was a betting man on the Kansas City Chiefs, I won't base it on the last game of the season. That was ugly, but it was performative ugly.
I mean,
That was
the people who should be most disappointed in that are Bengals fans, but they made their bet when they lost
yeah.
to the Patriots to start the season. Um, yeah, I mean it was kind of the Broncos have been a very surprising team considering everything that they've been through.
Young quarterback, very
Young
successful
quarterback,
quarterback.
Ray Sean Payton. How's he going to be as the head coach there?
Yeah.
And with Kansas City, I mean, what it just also shows is how important their top players are.
No kidding. No
Like,
kidding.
no, not even. Uh, like, it's not even funny how underwhelming that performance was for the
Oh,
backups.
you'd expect that they'd have trouble offensively without their starting quarterback and some pretty key receivers. But the real thing that was, I won't say concerning, because they rested a lot of their defenders. But coverage, oh my gosh, nothing like the Kansas City Chiefs of the past couple of years. And the Chiefs, let's be clear about something. That score speaks to the opposite of what's made the Kansas City Chiefs special this year. This team has gone from, following it from being an offensive dynamo to a defensive wall, and that score is no indication of the kind of defense that KC can play. So we'll see. I mean, I don't know that KC fans like myself have to worry about the fact that, oh no, they went into the playoffs and they played this kind of game. I think they have enough players on that team that understand not necessarily how to flip the switch for the playoffs, but how to turn up the volume.
Well, yeah, and like, don't tell me Kansas City didn't know what they were doing, making sure Denver won that game. Because
Well,
the
it's
last
ironic,
team,
isn't it? It's
I hate
ironic.
to say it, the last team I'd want to play
The Bengals.
is the Bengals with the way that Joe Burrow has been playing. Guy almost threw for 5,000 yards. No, the Bengals defense was bad.
Yeah,
Joe Burrow can't
it's
get
ironic.
protected. But I don't want to go up against the Bengals, right?
Well,
Pretty
okay, you're
explosive
making it
team.
sound like it isn't ironic, so maybe I should switch to not ironic and a plan, a conspiracy. Here we go.
Uh,
Um,
just a
and
touch. Just a
the
touch.
Bengals are and Burrow the quarterback. They are the team in the past few years that have been the team that KC needs to go over. They just by losing to Denver, they've removed that concern. You're right. I honestly didn't look at it that way, that it was better for them to lose, because I guess because I'm a jaded football fan. When my team plays so well and beats everybody every year, you don't think of the odds-on favorites to give you the hardest time. And you're right about the Bengals being the odds-on favorite to have given them a hard time.
Yeah, I mean, it's just our good teams in the playoffs. Don't get me wrong, but Bengals were on a roll. I think they
Yes,
won like
sir.
5 straight going to end the season. Those are the teams you do not want to play against in the playoffs.
We've seen it in the
So,
Canadian Football League.
right, you take your chances with the Denver Broncos inexperience, right? You will take your chance against them versus Joe Burrow, who's already played in a Super Bowl, who's been to a couple of championship games. You, it's one of those. And look, and Kansas City had to do the Bengals no favors. You see, right now you got a Packers team that just lost one of their top receivers for the year in a playing in that final game of the regular season. Their quarterback left that game too with an injury. So that was an easy excuse for Kansas City, but I think there were two goals with what they did against the Broncos for sure.
Absolutely. Let's talk now a little bit about the bracket and the teams that are in the bracket that surprised you. It's easy to say a team like the teams that just got in the last week were surprises. That's easy to say, but my biggest surprise all season was the Commanders. I don't know how you feel about it, but they're a team that came out of nowhere. That's on the positive side. And I'll say San Francisco not making the playoffs on the other side for me. Those are the two surprises for me, if I narrow it down.
I think the Broncos were the bigger surprise for me. Commanders, yes. I would say like second to the Broncos, Commanders. That's the first time they've won 12 games in a season since 1991 for Washington.
Yep.
Think about that. Back when they were a really good team,
And they had a different name.
right? Yeah, exactly. I think when you look at this playoff bracket right now, I'm actually just bringing up the bracket myself. A little hard to read from behind you, but
Sorry.
no, it's fine. But when I see the slate of games here, like yeah, Washington has had their ups and downs. Like I don't think I don't think it should be surprising anybody to see, you know, they're going into a tough matchup against a really good Tampa team that's been up and down. but they're
with an
capable.
interesting quarterback.
It's an interesting quarterback duel right there.
Yeah.
Um, like that game is going to be very interesting. And I mean, if you want to stay on the NFC side, because it's all happening on the side,
Okay, go ahead.
you know, Green Bay, they really did themselves no favors losing that game because now they got to play the Eagles. Although the Eagles right now, their quarterback is dealing with a concussion issue. Um, I I don't think that's going to be a problem, but I'm very much looking forward to seeing if the Packers rise up to the occasion against Philly. Philly's a good team. I hate to admit it, but they have done some things right.
CFL connection, Mike Hogan's favorite team.
Yeah, that's not the reason why I don't like them, but that's okay. I, I disliked them before I even knew Mike Hogan was a fan of them.
Oh, he's been for years.
But yeah, I mean, the NFC matchups to me are more intriguing because even the Vikings and the Rams, that's a heavyweight matchup there too.
Oh, no kidding.
The Vikings have been, you know what? Honestly, we talk about so many surprise teams. Vikings are up there too. Kirk Cousins leaves. Their top pick in the draft suffers a season-ending injury. Sam Darnold, who many thought
Around.
probably would never be much of a quarterback in this league, leads them to a 14-3 season. Now the Rams are going to be a tough team, but I do think I like the Vikings matchup a bit more. But man, imagine you're the Vikings. You have a 14-3 record.
Yeah.
And you have to go on
Yeah.
the road against the Rams, who are 10-7.
Because you
the way
lost the game.
Because the Rams won the division.
Yeah.
And that was the Rams. We all know if the 49ers were healthy, if the 49ers didn't deal with the injuries that they had, it's probably them this year. But I mean, the Rams also dealt with, I thought for a few years they were going to be taking a step back, but they kept themselves in a good position, right? They went out, they made a deal to get Stafford, and then they hit on a lot of their draft picks outside of the first round. So I still like the Vikings. I think all around team they're better, but the Rams could pull off an upset.
Yeah, the Vikings have a history of picking up CFL players. They have a long history of using CFL players. So, and they're also close to the Canadian border, and there are a lot of Canadian Viking fans. So when I speak here on a CFL show, a lot of the people who love the CFL, the Seattle Seahawks, the Minnesota Vikings, the Buffalo Bills, the New England Patriots, they're probably a couple of the biggest supported teams by Canadians. So up here up north, the Vikings are going to get a lot of support up here. LA to me is since they moved back to Los Angeles, it's almost as if they picked up that old Ram strength of when they were in their heyday, the Rams. They had players that became stars almost only because they came to LA. And I think it's going to be an interesting game. All the games here are going to be interesting.
A lot of Viking fans will also be at that game.
Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. That game will be very interesting. I guess the next one, Washington and Tampa. Boy, talk about resurrecting a quarterback.
Yeah, Tampa. That was look. You look at the Super Bowl year with Tom Brady.
Yeah,
tried their best to keep a lot of that around. Baker Mayfield, another for top pick, right? Heisman Trophy winner.
He got tossed onto the clearance bin.
Yeah, by two teams that have no idea what they're doing in Cleveland and Carolina. who knew that getting away from those two teams made him a competent player? I'm very impressed with Tampa. They have a good offense.
Yes.
Defense is a little iffy for me, but Baker Mayfield, it's a fun team to watch. Him with Mike Evans. Now, they did lose Now they do have some injuries, right? They
Absolutely.
lost one of their top receivers for the rest of the season with a torn ACL, right? Chris Godwin, that was a big loss for them. But man, a guy like McMillan who showed up and has really stepped up for them. That's to me the mark of a good team when guys like that can step up.
Absolutely.
Even right? That's how you know you have a good team culture when an injury like that doesn't tank your season.
Yeah. And they're Tampa. It's funny you mentioned Brady. Um, it, Tampa has we talked again. This is another. They're one of those teams that are able to pivot. And they did it with their pivot when they brought Brady in, and now they've done it again with Baker Mayfield. It's important not only that you bring a guy in, especially at quarterback, you have to have the team that helps that quarterback be successful. There's a fit that's required,
Mm.
and it's been a really good fit between the team and Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, there was a lot of that, and they went through their ups and downs. They went through their heartaches, but um, it's just the whole total team effort, right? To keep it all together there, right? And Mike Evans, is one of those guys, right? Wasn't sure how long he was going to be able to stick around there, um, and he was in a contract dispute, and they just decided to get past it, focus on the season, and he had hit another 1,000-yard season, right? So it's just a team that doesn't allow a lot of their a lot of their top a lot of their top guys have come through for them. That's just the best way to put it for Tampa.
It's a toss up. That game is a toss up.
To me, it is. It's probably the biggest toss up
Yeah,
because I feel like any of those two teams can win it. I would lean more towards Tampa just because they got the experience, right? Who to see how the rookie Jaden Daniels goes. Look, phenomenal season for the rookie coming into a spot like that. New head coach, first year he gets them to the playoffs, and Dan Quinn. Um, I as much as I don't like to see another NFC East team do well, it's the team I have the least amount of distaste
they're
for
coming up
of them. I don't hate them as much as the other ones, so good on them. But I don't know. I feel like they let their foot off the gas at some point. They almost lost to Dallas
almost.
to end the year. Let's see how that goes.
Absolutely. So Green Bay, Philly. Um, you know, these are two. I'm not going to say identical fan bases, but I will say two fan bases that are two of the wildest in the NFL. I'm sure there are wilder, and I'm sure the people will remind me which fan bases are wilder. But these are two teams as well who play in cities where the expectations are very high. Now, if you're Green Bay, they've created a history in that. Philadelphia has recovered. They've had a great 6, 7, 8 years. A little misstep now and then, but still, this game here to me, David, is the one where I really think star power is going to make the decision. I really do. This is the one
Coaching,
where the stars, yeah, and
coaching is going to make a huge.
absolutely, absolutely.
I think the Eagles have the better trench play. Um, Green Bay's offense is no joke. It's going to be very tough. They can beat you in multiple ways. Good quarterback. I just
You
think
got to love their offense.
yeah, and the Eagles being at home, we'll see that fan base will turn on them if things aren't going right. But
That's what I'm
I
alluding to.
I'm gonna give the Eagles the advantage because they also have Saquon Barkley, one
Yeah,
of the top running backs this year. Stupid Giants for letting him go to a rival, but I I can see it going either way. I really can, but I think the Eagles still have the better team all around. They really do a good job of playing the type of football that translates well to the postseason.
As long as they don't let overconfidence get to them, because they're the team, that are there, and they proved all season they belong there. Green Bay had a couple of missteps this season, and now they find themselves in a position to be the kind of team they know they are, and now they get their chance to prove they are to everybody else. I mean, it's hard to bet against Jordan Love in my mind. It's hard to bet against him. He's one of those amazing quarterbacks that are in the NFL right now, the handful of them anyway, young, great quarterbacks. Yeah, I'm with Philly on this one. So I'm going Tampa, Philly, and I'm going to agree with you with Minnesota in the NFC, and then of course then it'll be the Lions, and I'm looking forward to the Lions against Minnesota.
Yeah, it's the Lions are interesting, but yeah, I think those two, it's gonna ram together. It's gonna be
Hammer and anvil.
incredible, especially the scene in Detroit, the way that fan base is.
Oh yeah, the nouveau riche will
Yeah.
will be there to that new history of success. Will do well for them. Let's go over to the NFC. Sorry,
AFC.
AFC, the NFL AFC, and we've got the Chargers and Houston, the Texans. David, talk to me about these two teams.
Well, Houston, we this is an interesting team because this was supposed to be the next team, right, to take the rise. They've been disappointing, in my opinion. They've got good players, but they haven't put it together. Now, again, more injuries, right? They're one of their top receivers just had one of the more horrific injuries of the year. Really bad knee injury that took him out. I really like the Chargers here though, because the Chargers to me, one of the underrated defense, allow one of the fewest points among defenses in the league. Justin Herbert, great quarterback. They traded away his top receiver, and they didn't skip a beat in a lot of ways. John Harbaugh back in the playoffs too. I think you can't discount what he's capable of as a coach there. I like the Chargers just because I think they worked a lot on balance, and I like I just like to make up their team a lot better than Houston. I think their offense could struggle in this game. They've had some up and down performances to end this season, and the Chargers have been very steady and consistent. So even though they're on the road, I like the Chargers.
Absolutely. Pittsburgh playing, one of the oldest successful franchises in the NFL against one of the newest successful franchises in the Baltimore Ravens. And the whole reason they're good is because of their quarterback. Some might suggest the best player in the league is running that offense.
Pittsburgh is trying to play this old style football where defense rules, but that offense, man, is it tough to watch. Russell Wilson's done his best, but
He
I don't
found a
think
home.
they cannot try to outgun the Ravens. They got to hope their defense comes up, and you got to stop Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. I'm sorry, this to me might be the blowout of all blowouts.
That's the fear that I
That's
have.
where it's
Yeah, I agree
trending
with you.
towards. Now, it's a divisional game. I'm sure the Steelers are going to try their best, but yeah, no, I'm not liking where this is going for if I'm a Steelers fan.
The Ravens are going to make Wilson run. Wilson's not as young as he used to be,
Mm-hmm.
and it's gonna be a problem. It probably, that we talk as hockey fans, we talk about time and space. Well, time and space for a quarterback is what they live and breathe and need to be successful. and this Ravens defense isn't going to give him a lot of time. And the offense, on the other hand, for them, the thing about the Ravens and their quarterback is that he doesn't need much time. He makes it with his legs. He makes time for himself. The threat of him running has teams giving his offense a chance for some good throws, you know, in the midsection of the defense.
Yeah, man, it's just a tough matchup, right? I do think the Ravens and Steelers, that's a complete blowout. Bills Broncos has that potential too.
Oh boy, this one here, I think this is the biggest chance for a major upset is this game. The one advantage that Buffalo has at this time of year is weather. I don't think there's another team that is more accustomed to the weather they're going to be playing in no matter what in Buffalo, David. That's an advantage that Buffalo has usually, you know, and this time they don't. They're going to be playing a team that knows how to play in this weather.
Yeah, and a team that is probably feeling confident. They know everyone's betting against them,
That's right.
so they got nothing to lose.
Absolutely nothing to
Buffalo,
lose.
there is so much on the line. Josh Allen, MVP season. Is this the last chance for Sean McDermott, the head coach, if they don't pull it off?
Well,
They
especially
had
if
their
they lose
struggles.
in the first round, especially if they lose in the first round.
The struggles they had offensively, right? Like
Mhm.
for Denver, this is an opportunity where you can try to frustrate the Bills. For Buffalo, Von Miller going up against his former team that didn't want him anymore, right? A long time ago. Interesting to see how that plays, but the Bills, I also am wondering, has there been too much cruise control for them?
They did have an easy
The
schedule
AFC East was they had that thing won early. And I just wonder, are they ready for that to take that next step? Right? They've had some really good performances. They've also had some really bad ones. So
and and like Kansas City, their record is a little bit inflated with a couple of breaks through the
mhm,
season.
yeah.
And I'm talking about when I say don't get mad at me, KC fans. I'm a fan of the team, but the reality is that both those teams won a lot of games that, you know,
Yeah, it's true. I just think that when you look at Buffalo especially, Josh Allen this year tried not to be the hero as much as he used to. I just hope that doesn't change in the playoffs. I hope they use their running game like they have. I hope that their receivers are ready to help their quarterback.
and let's not forget that that's the team that has had trouble with receivers playing the way they did during the season in a playoff game.
Yeah.
They underperformed, and you bring up a very important point, and the performances of the receivers for Buffalo have to be top tier for them to win.
No, very yeah, no.
Because then you're gonna force uh, Buffalo's quarterback to take chances, and you said it right when you said if he starts doing that, he starts trying to be the hero, and he needs that support so that he doesn't fall into that trap, right? That's why I
Mhm.
think it's important that receivers hang on to some balls for a change in the playoffs.
Uh yeah. It's gonna be very interesting. I just think right now I think no team in the AFC has more pressure on them than the Bills.
Absolutely.
And I'm curious to see how and maybe they feel like that's something that they need. They just need that pressure to hopefully push them forward.
Yeah, this is the game that I really think because of everything we said here that sounds kind of negative towards Buffalo. It's also the opportunity that if they can win this game, there are a lot of ghosts that they're going to slay by doing it, in my opinion. And that's that, every playoff has a circumstance where a team as much as a team goes in, and it's important to go into the playoffs on a roll, there are also times when teams, because of the short schedule, if you will, that you can get momentum going in a hurry too. You can build up momentum very quickly, not just carry it from a late season rush, but also a playoff start. And this is an opportunity for Buffalo to slay a few demons, win this game against a team that's they're gonna give them whatever. They're gonna give them more than Buffalo can handle, and Buffalo's gonna have to play really well to beat Denver. Because I agree with you that they've had a little bit of um, you know a momentum kick, in these last few games in making the playoffs.
Yeah. No, it's going to be. This is a very intriguing playoffs.
And a quarterback you don't have too good a book on. You know what I mean? Like,
Well, that's also true.
sizes.
Like, I'm trying to double think. I don't think the Bills have even played the Broncos this year. So, like for me, it's like Buffalo might not match up well just because they're maybe not as familiar with it, right? With this matchup. So I'll be very interested to see if the Broncos have one more upset, one more surprises up their sleeves. Because I could you're right, I could very well see this being um so it's something that, if Buffalo loses, it could be a disaster for that organization.
Oh, big time.
Mm-hmm.
No, it doesn't say that they played them or didn't.
No,
I
they
was trying
haven't
to look.
played them. I
They haven't
checked.
played them. I don't remember. I don't remember them playing them. So, uh, I guess that brings us to the point. Um, I really think the Super Bowl is for KC to lose and for Detroit to lose as well. But the beauty of this kind of stuff, David, is that there could be an upset along the way, and they could be swept up by an upset. I like the matchups here, and it's going to be a fun football weekend.
Very fun. Very, very fun.
Yeah, David, thanks for doing this.
Thank you, Frank.
Hey, I hope we didn't damage you too much, buddy.
No, I'll get some water in me. I'll be good.
Good, I hope so. All right, for David Morassutti, I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. Thank you for watching CFL Football Talk, airing live here on Mondays at 4 p.m. This show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Radio Network. For CFL Talk, news, entertainment, and other sports programming we offer, please check out spanglishworld.ca. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, live it. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'm Candid Frank.